This week on Catholic Pore Over.
I hear so many people, when they hear about the Propaedeutic year, say, this applies to my life. Like, I need a tech fast. I need more leisure time. I need more rest. I need to go to bed earlier. I need more prayer time. So one of the reasons we had you on is because, yes, this is about our seminarians, but it's also a model for all Catholics, yeah?
All the lessons of the Propaedeutic year. How am I using my money? Is technology running my life? Am I doom scrolling my way through life here? How is that being used for me? How do I do with silence? Do I get enough prayer time?
We are so excited to have Father Mark Ott on Catholic Pore Over to talk about the Propaedeutic year.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here to talk about the Propaedeutic year.
I can't even spell it.
So yeah, it's always the first and biggest question I get from everybody when I talk about this. What even is that word? So actually, it's a Greek word. It essentially means preschool. So Propaedeutic is seminary preschool. And it's a new thing. Here in our diocese, certainly, but maybe a little background to where this is all coming from. So there's actually a document that comes out of Rome that governs how seminaries operate. And it's kind of always been that way. And every so often they revise that document. And then that goes to the American bishops and they revise their document. And that comes down to us at the seminary. And we figure out what to do with that. So when you and I were in the seminary, we were governed by what was called the Program for Priestly Formation, 4th edition.
I remember. It was
That's
green.
Right. There you go. Yeah, PPF number 4. Mm-hmm. And that came out shortly after St. John Paul's great encyclical Pastores Dabo Vobis, I Will Give You Shepherds, in which he talked a lot about human formation there particularly. So that was kind of the big new emphasis in PPF number 4 when we were in the seminary. We talked about intellectual, spiritual, human, and pastoral formation, those 4 dimensions. That was a big thing in our time. And of course, St. John Paul, wonderful human himself. He was, in addition to being the Pope, a great priest, he's an actor, he was a philosopher, a writer, all these different things. And so he really wanted to cultivate that human dimension, especially in priests, So PPF number 6 that we're on now, the big innovation that's coming out of this one is we're talking about seminary formation in terms of stages of forming the human person. Rather than in the past, we talked about a more intellectual focus of it. So you would begin by studying your philosophy in your undergraduate part of the degree, and then in grad school you would study theology. So we talked about it primarily in terms of those intellectual things. Now we're looking at seminary formation in terms of stages, and the Propaedeutic stage is the first stage of formation. So really quickly, the 4 stages now. There's the Propaedeutic stage, and then the discipleship stage, the configuration stage, and then vocational synthesis. And what that's doing is it's going human development from essentially leaving adolescence behind to entering fully fledged adulthood. And in the Propaedeutic stage, we're really focusing on a person's self-awareness and self-acceptance. So finding out, who am I in Christ, and understanding the fullness of that. Our theme for the year is Filius et Frater, son and brother. So really understanding yourself as a beloved son and brother. That self-awareness and self-discovery, which involves a lot of prayer time and also some psychological stuff, all those kind of things, coming to a place of real wholeness and healing there. And then you would move on to once you meet like all the formation benchmarks of that Propaedeutic stage, then you would move on to discipleship. And in discipleship, you're growing in virtue as you are coming to understand yourself as a true disciple of Christ, and you're studying philosophy and learning about the virtues philosophically and all of those kind of things. And so that's a journey of self-mastery in Christ. After the self-discovery, get into the self-mastery and growing in virtue. And then you graduate from college, move into the configuration stage, if you meet those developmental benchmarks. And in the configuration stage, you're being configured to Christ the high priest. And that's a journey of self-donation, self-gift. And so, and then the last stage is vocational synthesis, when you're ordained a deacon and you're out in the parish and learning how to live life as a cleric, as a clergyman in the church. And the emphasis of that year is pouring yourself out in service, as the life of a deacon is. So self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-mastery, self-gift, and pouring yourself out in love. That's the the movement through seminary now. So mine is the propaedeutic stage.
Nice.
That's the very first part of it. So it's preschool because it's before you study any philosophy or theology.
That
Before,
was my question. Yeah.
yeah. Before you do any of that, you are really getting to know yourself in a very deep way, which is really great because in the way we did it before, a guy starts feeling a call to priesthood. He has like some charismatic experience. The Lord's tugging on his heart. And then he comes into the seminary and immediately starts studying heavy philosophy. And he's like, this wasn't what I signed up for. I just wanted to talk about Jesus, And in the meantime, we're like, kind of figure yourself out along the way as you're taking all these intense classes and things like this. So the reason for the propaedeutic year is to give a guy a chance to really understand himself in light of Jesus very deeply before worrying about all the academic things and stuff like that.
So before the propaedeutic year was introduced with PPF 6, when I entered the seminary in fall of 94, I started right at Borromeo. I was considered a freshman and started studying philosophy right out of the gate. And you went to Franciscan University, where Maria did her master's work. Mm-hmm. And then you came into St. Mary's Seminary and you began as a pre-theologian. Also, no, you already had your philosophy and theology, but if you didn't, you would have had to do this.
Right.
So let's get down to the nitty gritty. So can a guy still come to our Cleveland Seminary right out of high school? And if he doesn't come right out of high school and if he already has a degree, where do they wind up? And do they wind up together in this propaedeutic business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, different seminaries are interpreting this in different ways, but the PPF gives us options in this. So there's a couple different pathways, and we've chosen to do kind of a hybrid thing here in Cleveland. One of our concerns was, so if a later vocation comes into the seminary, he would go right into this experience that I'm shepherding here.
And what do you call it?
So we call it the Propaedeutic Immersion.
Immersion, okay.
Yeah. So he would go right into this very intense thing that we're doing. And there's a lot of silence. We take away all their technology. I'll talk more about the details later. There's like a lot of things that you're giving up. It's an intense, right off the front experience. And one of the things we were concerned about is if we would have guys coming in who are in their 30s and even 40s, things like that, entering seminary for the first time, putting those guys in the same intense program with like 18-year-olds coming right out of high school. So like, how is that going to happen?
Bad idea, yeah.
So what we decided is we have kind of two different ways of starting seminary. So if you are a later vocation and you already have like your college degree, your undergrad degree, but you haven't really taken the philosophy or done the formation, then you come right into my propaedeutic immersion year. If you're coming in right out of high school, you would technically do a 3-year propaedeutic. So the first 2 years, you'd be living at Borromeo College and taking your like general education classes as that initial part of your undergrad degree. So not taking any philosophy yet, but all the general stuff you got that every college student has to do, right? And those guys are living on the seminary campus, and they are shepherded by other faculty members, basically guiding them from being teenagers to becoming young adults. So there's 2 years of formation directed at that to help them to even have the capacity for doing what we're going to do in this intense immersion year. Then in the 3rd year of Borromeo, he would come into the immersion year. So my group is generally 3rd year Borromeo students who came in out of high school and incoming late vocation guys. And so far, this is only our 2nd year of doing it, but so far it's been about roughly 50-50. Half guys coming in from 3rd year Borromeo, the other half later vocations.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the average age is now. Are many coming right out of high school, or is it later?
Yeah, so far it's been about half and half for the first 2 years. I believe next year, I think we have 3 of the Borromeo guys coming up, and then 5 or 6 late vocations coming in. So that'll be a little more stacked on the older side.
And where do you live? Are you in the seminary, or tell us a little bit about the situation, because there's supposed to be some separation, yeah?
Yeah. So they really want the propaedeutic community to be distinct from the rest of the seminary because their lifestyle is quite a bit different than what the rest of the seminarians are doing. And having a lot of real quiet time for silence and solitude is very important. So when we were discerning this, we had a lot of different ideas about different places in the diocese where we might do this. What we eventually settled on was on the seminary campus. So our seminaries actually began life as a convent of the Good Shepherd Sisters in the 1940s. And they eventually sold that convent to the diocese. So they had kind of a big complex where that particular community served women who were in a lot of difficult situations. So they had a residence area for them, and then they had their own convent. So now the residence area is the main seminary, and that old convent is, we call it Frassati House for St. Pier Giorgio Frassati. That's the Propaedeutic house. Colloquially, we refer to it as the Propaedojo. So that's where all of my guys live. I would like to live inside there. I should be as the Propaedeutic director, but there isn't really a priest suite in that building. So I live in the main seminary, but very close to where they are. And I have my office is in there. I basically live out of my office most of the time because I'm meeting with those guys a lot and doing all my prep stuff in there. So in that house, we have our own chapel, our own living room and dining room. And then the guys have their dorm rooms and bathrooms. So we're all kind of self-contained in there. But the great thing is we are definitely distinct from the main seminary. We even have our own liturgy schedule, all that. But we can also use all of the resources of the seminary. So there's actually a dumbwaiter from the main seminary kitchen. They send the food up to our own private kitchen and dining room. And then the seminary teachers come and teach the classes for the guys. And it works out really well. And there's about typically one day a week where my guys get to interact a little bit with the rest of the seminary. So they still get to know the guys they're in seminary with. But most of the time, they're much more isolated in our own unique spot.
So I imagine that each man coming in has so many different experiences and levels of education or just how well they did in school prior, but they all might have somewhat of a heart to discern this. Does this year help to kind of level set everyone, or what are the nuts and bolts of it?
Yeah, so I'll take you through a bit of how the year ends up playing out. So we begin in the middle of August when the main seminary is starting up. We start around a similar time. But I have my guys come in and we do a day of just getting to know the place a little bit, and then I take them camping for 2 days. And so kind of throw them out into the wilderness, and we go camping, and that's always a good fraternal bonding experience out there. Come back and do a little service project for the seminary of some sort. So the last couple of years, I actually grew up painting houses. So last year, a couple of years, I led them through a few painting projects, painting different classrooms at the seminary or different things like that, getting involved with good life skills, those kind of things. And then we enter into the regular weekly life from there. So a typical week in the Propaedeutic house, we have a strict liturgy schedule. So it starts with 6:30 in the morning holy hour, Eucharistic holy hour.
Every day?
Every day, Monday through Friday.
Oh.
Yeah. Eucharistic holy hour, 6:30 in the morning. Yeah, regularity of schedule is a good thing.
It is.
Kind of resets people's biorhythms and stuff. So 6:30 a.m. holy hour, which finishes with morning prayer. And then after that, we go to breakfast. And then there's about an hour of what I call simple silence. And that's supposed to be time for them to reflect and prepare themselves for the class they're going to have that morning. There's a class each weekday morning, but the interesting thing about the Propaedeutic year is there are no grades. So these classes are just to learn to love learning, essentially.
That's great.
So Monday is spirituality, so learning different prayer styles. They go through Ignatius spiritual exercises, a bunch of different things like that. Tuesdays is Catechism of the Catholic Church, and they just get to know a little bit about church life by reading through and talking about the Catechism. Wednesdays is Love of Learning, and we have a few different professors who basically give them great books to read, sometimes fiction, sometimes some things of helping to think about your place in life and things like that. But that's just kind of a guided reading from a few of our different professors there at the seminary. Thursdays is wellness with our staff psychologist. And so he comes and he'll present usually for about an hour on a particular area of psychology. And then they have some group discussions about how things are going in the house, stuff like that. And then Fridays is my class. I teach them a class on basics of formation. So the agenda of human, spiritual, intellectual, and pastoral formation that I'm kind of setting for the year. And I have kind of a formation arc that goes over the year of how I'm taking this guy from, trying to take this guy from being, leaving behind his adolescence and becoming a young adult as he is on this journey of self-awareness and self-acceptance. So a lot of variety of topics based on that. So that's the classes that they have in the morning. Then we have noon mass, and then lunch right after that.
Wait,
then,
where do you have noon mass? Just in your chapel?
In our own little chapel.
In the Propaedeutic?
Yep, in the Propaedeutic. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have, and it's just our community there.
Cool.
So we have our mass together. And so they're learning all the liturgical roles. I assign a lector and a reader, a reader and a server for each of those days. And then the afternoon is unstructured time for them. So we don't call it free time, we call it unstructured time. Because free time would suggest just do whatever you want to do. But the unstructured time is the time that we're giving you to figure out your own formation. And like, what are you interested in? A big thing that we do in the Propaedeutic year is get to know real leisure. And very early on in the year, in the first month, actually, we talk a lot about what leisure is actually supposed to be. It's not just like vegging out, checking out, after a hard day of work or something like that. Actually, leisure is where you come to know who you really are, what you're really interested in, and what your contribution is to the world. And so a lot of the leisure things the guys get involved in, beyond reading for their classes or things like that, a lot of them will like pick up an instrument or learn to paint something or learn to build something, work with their hands, whatever they discern to do. And we just give them time to really pursue that and think about it in the context of like who you are as a person, what you want to contribute to the world. And so they have plenty of time in the afternoons for that. They'll have some other things. Maybe they meet with the formation advisor or spiritual director, one of those guys each week. So you meet with your formation advisor, which would be me, 1 week, and your spiritual director the next week, just to talk it out and see how things are going with your time in this year. They have apostolates that they also trade off in doing. So this year especially emphasizes getting to know the poor and working with the poor in various states. So one of their favorite ministries is Labra, where they go into downtown Cleveland with some students from the Newman Club at Case Western Reserve University. And basically they box up hot meals and just drive all over Cleveland. And whenever they find homeless people, they ask, would you like something to eat? And they give them a meal, chat with them for a little bit, get to know them. They're good at tracking who they are and encountering them and watching out for them. So they all love that one. They go to Mount St. Joseph Nursing Home and just visit with the residents there. And they like to sing songs with them and just hang out and hear their stories. They help to serve the hot meal on Thursday nights at Holy Name Church in Cleveland. And then there's another one that's House of Champions, where they help kids after school with their homework and different things like that. And so they rotate through all those apostolates. Those will happen Monday and Thursday afternoons. So that's part of that's a little more structured than the unstructured time, but they rotate through those assignments. Then 5:45, we have evening prayer together from the breviary, and then dinner. And then we usually pray the rosary after dinner. And then a bit more unstructured time in the evening, 9 p.m. Night prayer from the Liturgy of the Hours. And then after night prayer is grand silence. So no sounds at all. And I even tell them, like, rather than even whispering to people, try gesturing first. And that involves not just the sounds that you make with your mouth, but pay attention to your footfall, pay attention to the way you slam doors and things like that. And the purpose of that is, that's 9 o'clock. They're not just going to bed right away, but grand silence extends from after night prayer until morning prayer. And so all of that time in silence to hear the voice of the Spirit and to get used to that solitude and being with the Lord in the quiet. So that's the structure of the 5 days of the week. On Saturdays, that's their free day. So after their prayer time in the morning and going to Mass in the morning, they're free to leave campus. They get their phones back, and I didn't even mention that part.
Oh, they haven't had their phones the whole time.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Weekdays throughout the Propaedeutic year, we practice the technology, media, and commerce fast. So no phones or computers. So they're not engaging with the outside news or things like that. If something big happens, I'll tell them, But this is a break away from all of those things, and no commerce. So no leaving campus to go shopping for stuff, or they don't have access to Amazon anyway. So any of those kind of ordering things. So Monday through Friday, technology, media, commerce fast. So it's all gone 24 hours a day. We have one closet in the dojo where they put all their technology on Sundays, and it stays there until they can pick it up on Saturday. So Saturday, they get their phones back. They can leave campus, go home, hang out with friends. Throughout the day on Saturday, they just come back by 10 p.m. And then on Sundays, one of the other objectives of the Propaedeutic year is to get familiar with the diocese where you're going to be serving. So I send the group out to Mass in one of our diocesan parishes. So I send the whole group to the same parish, a different parish every Sunday.
Okay.
And for most of the year, I basically send them to each other's home parishes so they can get to know where they grew up, where they've been praying. A lot of times they'll go to Mass in the morning and then meet with the parish pastor and hear a bit of his vocation story or a bit of what he is hoping and dreaming for this particular parish, his vision. And then a lot of times they'll have lunch with the family of the seminarian that goes there, So that's the morning on Sundays. And then in the evenings, we have dinner and movie night. So we'll have dinner, but I break the group into teams of 2 or 3, and they make Sunday dinner for the rest of the crowd. And usually the first round through, it's kind of like college bachelor food. And then about the second or third round through, I ask them to start thinking more about think adult dinner party with nutrition macros. Yeah. Because that's one of the things I want them to do. Most priests live on their own, and a lot of priests have no idea how to cook nutritiously for themselves.
Yeah.
So this is getting them off on both learning to cook well and also learning to host people, because they're forming a great fraternity here in the seminary, and I hope they will continue to engage that stuff once they're out and on their own in a parish, still getting together with each other and enjoying each other's company for that. And then we'll watch a movie that evening. It's not necessarily a directly Roman Catholic movie, of course, but movies that have great Christ themes in them and stuff like that. Generally, I look for a movie that has something to do with the things that we were talking about. So the last one we did a couple weeks ago, I was talking about internal family systems, which is a great new sort of psychological method but a great movie that illustrates that is Inside Out 2. So we watched that for our Sunday movie night and led to a really great discussion about the stuff that we were working on over the course of the week.
That's great. Now, a couple highlights that the guys talk about and everybody raves about are the Pore Immersion and the Camino walk.
Yeah.
So you could talk about those briefly?
Sure. Yeah, so the first half of the year, I just get all these guys and they're new to me. So the first half of the year is a lot of trust building and just spending time talking to the guys a lot, hanging out with them throughout this whole schedule and building up that trust. And I build up that trust for a reason, because in the spring semester, there's a lot of great, powerful experiences that we're going to get into. First one comes in January. For the month of January, just after they come back from Christmas break, I send the guys on a poverty immersion for the month. And Brother Mick Joyce, one of our great Capuchin Franciscans who's with us there at the seminary, he has organized several different sites for them to go to. And I basically get them a Greyhound bus ticket, and they leave the seminary. They can take $50 with them, no credit cards and no cell phone. And I give them this bus ticket and send them to go live with some Capuchin Franciscans somewhere else. And we had some Mercedarians this year as well. So this year we sent the guys to Capuchin places in Philadelphia, in Washington, D.C., and in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and then with the Mercedarians in Columbus. So I gave them a bus ticket, and they can take $50, no credit cards, no cell phone, and they end up there, and the Franciscans pick them up there. They live with them for the month and serve the poor there. And the idea is taking them out of their comfort zone, because a lot of these guys are going to inner city places, and a lot of them are from the suburbs. They've just never experienced that before. Take you away from your support structure. You can't rely on your credit card or your phone or go see the people that you know in the area. It's just you and Jesus and the poor and the Franciscans that you're living with. So they're cared for. They have a place to live and they're fed. But they're doing these great ministries. And I love the day at the end of January when they come home, just the stories that come out of all of this. And for a lot of guys, it's this is the first time I've ever actually needed to rely on Jesus, and he showed up. So some really beautiful experiences, sometimes really difficult experiences. Those things come out too. It's I didn't realize how painful that would be, or how frustrated I would be with this or that thing, and that's great. It's I grew up sheltered from all of this. I never thought about it this way.
Yeah.
One thing that a few of the guys talked about this year was how their views on even like immigration have changed. When they encountered people, they just had never really encountered someone who was in a difficult immigration situation, but they did now. And they're like, they're actually amazing people that I met. And this like changed my mind, so I love the mind change stuff. So that poverty immersion is really powerful. And then just a few weeks after they come back from that, they go away on an 8-day silent retreat, doing an 8-day version of the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius. And I designed that as I wanted them to have like the poverty immersion experience and then have Jesus unpack that for them, And I think that happens a bit, but they all loved the 8-day retreat. They did report that they didn't really revisit the poverty immersion a lot, but Jesus was doing all kinds of things in their hearts, and they absolutely loved it. So, going from such a tech-based society to, again, putting all that away and having silence and solitude for like 23 hours a day, because you just, on a silent retreat like that, you're even silent during meals. You basically just pray the liturgies of the church and talk to your spiritual director for 1 hour, and everything else is silence with Jesus. And they loved it. It was great. So that was in February. Then there is, in Lent, we do the Healing the Whole Person retreat through the John Paul II Center for Healing, which I've done that several times myself, and I was trained in how to kind of put that on. Love that. A lot of healing takes place. Again, a big part of this year is self-awareness and self-acceptance. So that's a big, powerful part of that. And then coming up now, we have next week will be a Life in the Spirit seminar for them as we're getting ready for Pentecost. And then the week after that, they're going to head out on the Camino de Santiago. So for the whole month of June, they will be hiking a 1,000-year-old pilgrimage route across northern Spain. So I did that with them last year. Father Pat Anderson's going to go with them this summer. And the reason I see the Camino as like the final exam of the Propaedeutic year. So because Propaedeutic year is all about self-discovery, and you have a lot of time. You're hiking. It's essentially like 480 miles. It's about 15 miles a day for 33 days, hiking the Camino. And so you're hiking for 6 to 8 hours a day, depending on how long that particular leg of the journey is. Sometimes with people, sometimes with friends, sometimes with people you're just meeting from all over the world, sometimes by yourself. And so how are you doing with the silence and the solitude? This becomes a great test for that. How are you doing with understanding yourself and how you relate to other people as you're encountering people of all different faiths from all over the world? Like the whole commerce fast thing. We give them a budget of 35 euros a day. And so for between 8 and 15 euros, you get a place to sleep. And then the rest of that, you buy food. And can you be grateful for that and live simply? They can spend their own money too. But I ask them to really kind of take that seriously and be modest and receive rather than grasping.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time talking about the difference between a pilgrimage and a vacation. This isn't a vacation. This is a formation experience for you. And so can you kind of live that out really completely? And then we've had this very rigorous prayer schedule all through the year. Can you manage your own prayer time and make sure you're praying the Liturgy of the Hours, getting to Mass, having contemplative time with Jesus, managing that yourself, because we're all walking at different rates and, all those different things. So can you take responsibility for yourself and kind of fully grow up there? And so I think the Camino becomes this great like exclamation point at the end of your adolescence, fully ready to embrace your young adulthood, to take ownership for yourself and move forward into that discipleship stage.
Yeah.
It sounds like the exact kind of formation that we had when we were in the seminary. Just kidding, it doesn't.
Not quite.
Father Mark, you've been ordained now 25 years.
Yeah.
And I love the way that you talk about my guys, and that like your fatherhood is coming out in the way that you speak about the formation that you're offering. And I think that's whether you're married, your own children, or you're a spiritual father, you always want what's better for the next generation than what you've had before. And
Absolutely.
I hear so many people, when they hear about the Propaedeutic year, say, this applies to my life. Like, I need a tech fast. I need more leisure time. I need more rest. I need to go to bed earlier. I need more prayer time. So one of the reasons we had you on is because, yes, this is about our seminarians, but it's also a model for all Catholics, yeah?
Absolutely. In fact, this past Lent, I help out at Holy Martyrs in Medina on the weekends, and they asked me to put together a little sort of a parish mission thing. It was Generations of Faith style education experience based on the Camino. And so I talked a lot about the difference between pilgrimage and vacation. I said the reason we go on pilgrimages is to remind ourselves that we're actually already on one. So we are on this pilgrimage through life. We're living our lives intentionally on our way towards the eternal glory of heaven, right? And so the discrete pilgrimages that we do reorient us back to that after we've gotten like sidetracked by other things. And so I talked about some lessons that I learned myself on the Camino, and then I kind of guided us through how can I think about this in my own personal pilgrimage of life, like how all the lessons of the Propaedeutic year. How am I using my money? Is technology like running my life? Am I doom scrolling my way through life here? How is that being used for me? How do I do with silence? Do I get enough prayer time? You know, and so all of those things are a part of everyone's life. And in fact, almost every single time, especially when I'm talking to devout Catholics, when I tell them what I do as the Propaedad, as the director of the Propaedeutic year, the response that I always get is either, "Can I come and do that?" or "I want you to do that to all my kids."
Yeah, I think both my children need it, but I only have one son. Well, thank you, Father. This was very enlightening for me. I didn't know that this all was going on, and I'm more or less grateful that our future priests are receiving this type of formation. It'll be a great gift to our diocese.
Yeah, it's been such an honor and a blessing to be a part of this. And so we're only into our second year. We're finishing up our second year of it, but I am super hopeful and excited about where this is going to go into the future.